It's our fourth meeting for the week. Welcome to this Thursday episode of Business Morning, and it's here on Channels Television. I hope you are set for 55 minutes of relevant and current business conversation, because that's what we're going to do. Now, I'm Ini John Mekwa, and we start off with oil prices in the global space. Obviously, prices rose in early Asian trade on Thursday, clawing back some ground from more than 1 year lows that it hit in the previous session, as markets calmed somewhat after Credit Suisse was thrown a financial lifeline by Swiss regulators. Brent crude futures rose 85 cents to $74.54 a barrel. Meanwhile, West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 74 cents to $68.35 a barrel. Both benchmarks rose by more than $1 earlier in Thursday's session. And on Wednesday, they hit their lowest level since December 2021, having fallen for 3 straight days. Brent has lost nearly 10% since Friday's close, while U.S. crude is about 11% down. Later on today, European Central Bank policymakers are seen leaning towards a 0.5 percentage point rate hike, as the Eurozone economy is picking up strength and inflation is set to remain high for the years. Higher interest rates can lead to depressed demand for oil as economic growth slows. But concerns of a deepening financial crisis for the banking sector could also weigh on oil demand. Meanwhile, figures showed China's economic activity picked up in the first 2 months of this year, 2023, at the end of strict COVID-19 containment measures. Well, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, is asking the governors of central banks and other African financial sector regulators to be more vigilant in their regulatory and supervisory roles to forestall any run on banks in their respective jurisdictions. Mr. Emefiele was speaking at the opening of the 2023 African Central Bank Conference held at the Global Leadership Center in Johannesburg, South Africa. Speaking on the current global dynamics and specific policy developments in Nigeria to address emerging shocks, he advised central banks on the continent to draw lessons from the recent failure of the Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank in the United States of America by putting in place regulations that will prevent any run on banks in their countries. Emefiele, while sharing Nigeria's experience in regulating banks, notes that the threats posed to the financial system necessitated the release of new guidelines and regulations to tackle potential infringement and in the process protect depositors' funds as well as promote greater transparency in the sector. Well, just a couple of hours and Nigerians will be going out to choose the governors in different states. And we still have those governorship candidates making promises. We'll have the Labour governorship candidate in Abia State as well as the APP governorship in Abia State telling us some of the promises they're selling to the people of Abia. Let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll give you those promises from the candidates.
So one of the things that we intend to do is to ensure that we pay off all the outstanding arrears of salaries and allowances, and of course pensions, whatever it takes. We have to do that to stimulate the economy. Abia State at the moment is a 3.5 trillion Naira economy. By just taking simple economic decisions that are right, the economy can become a 7 trillion Naira economy. The debt profile has risen astronomically from 34.5 billion in 2015 to almost 190 billion today. So you need someone that will sit down with the lenders and restructure these facilities so that they will not become a burden on the economy. Then, in terms of industrialization, that is very, very key. But for industrialization to happen, it is critical that infrastructure is built around the state. Today, Abia ranks number 32 out of the 36 states in Nigeria in the ease of doing business index. At said in the past that this means that if you are an investor and you want to invest in one of the states in Nigeria, there are 31 states to choose from before you begin to think of Abia State. And that's the reason why, as you go about, you find that the industries that we had in the past are actually voting with their feet. Nigerian Breweries was in Aba. Aba Textile Mill was also in Aba. International Equitable Association, PZ, Liver Brothers, they have all disappeared. And the reason they left is because the environment has become inconducive for businesses. So we must start by creating a conducive environment for businesses to thrive. And when we do that, of course, we will attract both local and foreign investment. I'd also argued that I see governors fly all over the place. They are in Turkey today, tomorrow they are in China, and they are in search of foreign capital. And I had insisted that foreign capital cannot locate you if you do not, if you have not prepared yourself to receive foreign capital. So we must prepare the state by massively investing.
Solutions. Today, Abia is surrounded by 6 states, which makes Abia a perfect destination for business. But we are trading at about 3 trillion Naira turnover rate for a state that should be well above 10 trillion. It means that Abia is not meeting its optimal potentials when it comes to trade. Today, Abia is saddled with a lot of problems. Back payment of salaries, bad infrastructural development. Though the security in the state may have improved, but it's not yet perfect. Education is in a state of illusion. These are the reasons that I have decided to run for governor. I have a plan to restore back education by providing free primary and secondary school education to the people. I have a plan to subsidize high institutional educational facilities. I have a plan to bring back and lower the unemployment rate in the state. As you know, the national unemployment rate is about 34%. In Abia, it's between 52 to 60%. And most of those people are youths that are unemployed. So we've put a target to make sure we provide nothing less than 40,000 jobs in the next 4 years. It is our belief that we can do more, but that's the target we've set. And we can achieve this by bringing back our moribund industries back to life, by making sure our infrastructure, which is affecting our businesses, is also reconstructed. Port Harcourt Road, which is a key hub for businesses in Aba, must be reconstructed. We made a promise that we will have it functional by the end of this year, by December of 2023. Port Harcourt Express Road, which is a federal road, we will work with federal government to restore it back, so to make sure that the trade business which Aba is known for, and Abia is known for, is at its optimal rate.
So that's it for those residents, our viewers residents in Abia State. You heard the promises from APP and the Labour Party. It's your choice as you go out on Saturday, to make up your mind on who you think has the better plan or the best plan for your states. Now, I guess one of the issues that the incoming governors will have to deal with be the issue of cash crunch. And we've seen how that has affected inflation, trade, and all of that. Even after we have heard from the Central Bank of Nigeria that the old 500 and 1,000 Naira note can now be used as legal tender, it seems it's not all over yet. Well, that's why we have Kelly out on the street to give us what's going on. Hi, Kelly. You've been on the road a whole lot this week. So once again, we have you out there. News we're hearing from the background is even though 500 and 1,000 Naira note has been addressed by the central bank, to be used, The banks actually can give it out, but they refuse to take it in, or they ask for individuals to generate codes before they can take it back. What have you found about that?
Well, yes, just before we get into all of those details, we are back on the streets of Lagos, mainland Lagos, precisely the Ojodu Berger area here in Lagos, Nigeria. And from where I am, and perhaps a stretch of 200 kilometers, we have about 5 banks right here. And just like you said in your introduction, it does appear that the hardship is not over just yet, because we do have pockets of crowds around these banks. But let's get to do you the background of exactly what we're talking about here. Let's take for instance, my cameraman can just turn pan to my right-hand side of this particular bank. We can see just pockets of crowd or pockets of people just here waiting to gain access into this particular bank. I've spoken to 1 or 2 persons who have used the banking hall from this particular bank, and they have said that right in there they do not have so much persons around. But what we've discovered about this particular bank is that the automated teller machines here don't seem to be working. So for this particular branch or this particular bank, Lagosians here would have to go into the banking hall just to withdraw cash. I'm also told that they cannot withdraw more than 20,000 Naira. We'll speak to 1 or 2 persons about that in just a moment. But let's also get to establish another bank to my left-hand side, right here at the Ojodu Berger area. This doesn't just look like pockets of crowd. This is actually a massive crowd at this particular branch. I'm not sure how we can capture this because there are vehicles passing, but we can see at that particular bank, we can see pockets of persons here trying to gain access as well into that particular bank. So that's what it is right here, right now, this time. But over the issue about trying to make deposits into the bank, yes, we've spoken to 1 or 2 persons behind camera about all of that. And they said, yes, indeed, the CBN is trying to see how they can track people who, I think they have a directive perhaps from the Apex Bank about trying to track people who try to make in deposits, into the banks. And that's why they are, of course, trying to make sure they have the record of who is bringing what and just how much. That's what we've been able to get, of course, from 1 or 2 officials who, of course, cannot speak to us on Channels TV in front of the camera. But let's get to feel the pulse of Lagosians here. I have a POS agent, I have a customer, a bank user as well here, who would like to speak to Nigerians, speak to us live on Channels TV about what exactly is going on. Let's begin with the POS agent because she has shared something that indeed we need to let out there. Well, come talk to us here live on Channels TV. What's your name?
My name is Gift Oliver.
All right, go ahead and share with us what exactly your story, what exactly the difficulties are for you as a POS agent and your business.
Yeah, the thing is, the whole thing is so frustrated. As in, we don't see money to do business. For like 1 month now, I've not opened. For like 1 month, I've not stopped. And we don't see money. I came to bank and they said I will collect 5,000, 10,000. Is that what I will use and run my business? For how long now? And I told that money is outside. They can't give us money to run our business. We are really suffering in this Nigeria, please. Me, I'm suffering now. I can say it and again and again. I'm tired of the whole things. I'm just tired of the whole things.
Yes, I know you're on this queue. What number are you?
I'm in 111.
With 100?
Yeah, 111.
And how long have you been here?
I've been here for 5 hours, around 6 o'clock. Wow. I thought if I come out that early, I will see where to collect money. Still, till now, we are still on the queue.
All right. Well, Gibbs, we have to leave it here and now. We feel your pains indeed, and of course the pains of almost maybe 200 million Nigerians. These are indeed very interesting times indeed to be a Nigerian. And we also have another customer, a bank user here, who is also willing to speak with us live on Channel TV. Please come over here as quickly as possible so we can just get in your views. What exactly is playing out with you at this moment? Why are you here? How long have you been here?
Well, it is saddening. A country, Nigeria, with the situation we are going through. Despite the announcement from the CBN to continue to spend the old cash, I still find it difficult to get money. I was at the GTB since 7 a.m. till now. No money at the ATM. There is no money. I walk down to the Union Bank. No money. I am number 122. So I don't know how long I have to stay. As a civil engineer, I have to pay my artisans. I couldn't lay my hand on penny. And they are at work. yelling at me at night they need to get their money. It is so saddening.
All right.
So saddening.
Thank you so much for speaking with us live here on Channels TV. You're an engineer, of course. He has shared his pain. He'll need to pay his workers as well. I mean, we feel his pain and we feel the pains of those who are out here, of course, trying to make transactions. They're trying to gain access to their cash. And they're just wondering, in the 21st century, why would it cost an average Nigerian 5-6 hours to gain access to his own cash? But let's move on and try to see how we can get other banks around this area. Come with me and let's do this as quickly as possible. Hopefully we can also try to see if we can buy something with the old Naira notes and see what kind of reaction we'll get to that. Well, I have somebody here. Madam, I'd like to just buy your bonds and I have the old notes. Would you like to get, can I pay with that?
Yes, we don't have to. They said that we should be collecting old notes, so I can collect it.
All right, so you can collect my old note.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll be back with you and buy these bonds in just a moment. But stay with me and let's get to tell our viewers again, watching us from around the world, here in Nigeria, the continent, and around the world, of course. Take a look at this particular bank, for instance. This, of course, is what we've been talking about. So Nigerians queuing at this particular bank. They want to gain access in there and make withdrawals and gain their cash. But yet they have to sit in this scorching sun before they can do that. And we have spoken to a few of them who have shared their pains with us, and indeed, we tell you, it's really been
Kelly.
very difficult for them. I wish we could just see some persons who are also just seated.
All
right.
Yes, we see Nigerians there. Obviously, not a very good picture. They're not very encouraging, and this is even after the central bank has said that the 501,000 Naira could be used as legal tender. Still, it seems it's still really difficult for a lot of Nigerians to access their money. So it might be that the central bank still has more work to do, you know, for Nigerians to be able to access their money and for businesses to run. If we want money to get down there and to mop up some of the consequences of this cash crunch that the country has been facing for about a month now, then we call on the Central Bank of Nigeria. And of course, there's still that issue of people cannot easily deposit the old Naira note, even though the banks can give out the old Naira note. When individuals want to deposit it, then they will be required to use a code. I thought that was when 501,000 Naira note were no longer legal tender. So we call on the Central Bank of Nigeria to please, you know, ameliorate this pain that Nigerians are facing. And of course, yesterday, we had that inflation number. We had it go from 21.82% to 21.91%. And it was also attributed to this issue of cash crunch. But let me not get ahead of myself. We have Mr. Paul Alaje, senior economist and partner SPM Professionals, joining us virtually from the United Arab Emirates to tell us how much this has contributed to this. Mr. Alaje, good morning and thank you for your time. So I know you by now you're used to the new inflation number. How much of it can we attribute to the issue of cash crunch?
Well, thank you so very much for having me. A lot must be attributed to the cash crunch, whether we like it or not. The truth is, people find it more difficult to have access to money. And if you don't have access to money, it is in fact more difficult for you to access goods. When someone wants to buy, say, bonds, like your correspondent mentioned, or want to buy anything, and such person that wants to buy has been told that without providing cash, which is not available, you cannot have access to it. So what option does he have? If we go to the nearby POS, the POS is saying that for you to access 5,000, you need to pay additional 2,000. If he wants to use it to buy, say, bottled water or whatever that costs 5,000, the real price of that bottled water is 7,000. As a result, at least 2,000 Naira has been added to the cost. So the person that spends 7,000 Naira will also pass it to anything he's selling or his service and so on and so forth. Before you know it, it may go around the economy. So I use this as an example. Also recall that in the month of February, Nigerians spend quality man-hour time queuing at the filling station because there is relative scarcity of PMS at that particular point in time. So now get to filling station, I buy fuel. They tell you that the POS is not working. And what I experienced in February in Nigeria, it was that I had to then go to POS, collect cash, because I want to put fuel in my vehicle. The implication is that I am now paying more for what I actually wanted to buy. Then we should also talk about the devastating, the disturbing, and the very embarrassing network that most banks have in Nigeria. It's really very, very disturbing, to say the least.
And then there's now the projection that in the first quarter, we're going to have a contraction of the GDP. I guess this shouldn't come as a surprise with all of this that we have experienced, which you have listed.
Well, I spoke with your colleague on this show last year, and I said that if Nigeria don't take care, we may be going into a recession. You see, people don't understand why, in spite of central bank's directive, and the Supreme Court, one would say the almighty Supreme Court has spoken. One would say the almighty President Buhari, the central bank governor has spoken. What many don't understand is that when you withdraw 1,000 naira, the 1,000 naira that Paul had and gave to Ini is what was gave to Kelly. You know, if I say I want to buy your bag for 1,000 naira, that same note is what you would give to Kelly for transport. That same note is what Kelly will give to bond seller. That same note is what bond seller will give to pure water, and it keeps going on. Just one note. If you withdraw it from the economy, then it becomes a challenge for me to transact with you, for you to transact with your colleague Kelly, for Kelly to, and it goes on and on and on and on like that. Especially in an economy when other platforms, talk about digital platform or electronic platform, are not optimum. The implication is that velocity of money that should induce growth has been hampered, has been reduced drastically. Therefore, if we don't now buy, it's going to reduce aggregate output. When aggregate output reduces, then you will have slow economic growth. And I will not be surprised when the first quarter GDP report comes out. It is certainly be lower than last quarter GDP numbers. And I have said on your show before that if the National Bureau of Statistics says that the inflation is not higher in the month of February, then we should question the authority. Now, with the number we've seen, it's a minor, say reduced, growth. It's a reduced rate of inflation. Inflation is higher, I beg your pardon, even though by a marginal number. But that increase is still there. The target for inflation by central bank is between 6 to 9%. So talking about this cash crunch and the implication, a number of persons have asked that what must be done, and why are they still experiencing, like the person being interviewed there said, in spite of central bank, in spite of Supreme Court, in spite of President Buhari, politicians saying cash, that's 1,000 withdrawal. Central bank mentioned that over 22 trillion naira has been withdrawn from the economy. So you cannot imagine how many number of people that we have direct impact on. That does not mean this policy is wrong. I keep saying that. The alternative platform that we should be using, the alternative platform that should be available is not functioning. Again, the level of education for our people is still very low. Unlike other environments where level of education is relatively high, and alternative platforms are working. They are not yet in Nigeria, and in the places where they are, the functionality is low. So we have three situations. The first situation is the situation of ceteris paribus, other things being equal. This issue, this pressure on Naira, and we may not also go into a contract growth by the end of the quarter if the situation remains as ceteris paribus, that is, other things being equal. If central bank will actually release the withdrawn money, significant part to the economy, yes, inflation will spike, as you have read even in other markets, but the ease of accessing a commodity will reduce. What does that mean? That also means that you are going to have improved growth rate. But when that does not happen, and it's a situation where people can spend their old notes, but banks are dispensing to them, they are not receiving it back, then it should spike some concerns within the economy. Then you see people losing man-hour again, you see performance also reducing, and in the long run, you might only see growth in the medium term, not in the short term, in the first case of other things, other things being equal. The worst case scenario you may see is the mutatis mutandis. That is, what needs to be changed must be changed. When we need change, if the old notes that have been withdrawn to the economy does not come back, or if the money supply of the new notes, which I think is actually the issue, is not returned back to the economy, then wait for a recession by Q3 or Q4 2023, which means the president-elect, we first need to face the reality of the economic crunch. There is no policy you do at that time that will change, because that policy will take minimum of 6 months. That's if the policy is really super fast. But if the policy is also on politics and so on and so forth, I'm afraid we might need to wait for another 1 year. Recall that President Buhari, when he became president of Nigeria, Christine Lagarde of the IMF as at that time came to the country. And as against the advice economists in Nigeria we gave to government, they said the Nigeria economy was fine. And we said, well, it's our country. We live here. We live in Nigeria. If the government don't follow some things squarely because of the nature of our market, which is different from French market, which is different from what is happening in the United Kingdom, if we don't follow, their economy will go into recession. Nigeria economy went into a recession in 2016.
We certainly hope it doesn't.
Because some of the dynamics of our economy is relatively different from what is happening from the rest of the world. I hope that those in authority will avoid the last case scenario and make what should change. What should change is increase money supply. It's not important whether it's the old note or the new note. That money supply we have right now is evident that it is not sufficient for our people, the level of education we have in Nigeria, and more importantly, the other channels, electronic channel, is not functional.
All right, Mr.
What I think the correspondent.
All right, Mr. Laje. All right, Mr. Laje. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's kind of scary to have the new administration begin on a recession note, and we do hope that will not be the case. But thank you so much for making the picture clear for us, Mr. Paul Alaje.
Thank you so much for having me.
Senior economist and partner with SPM Professionals. Well, so it's once again on the feet of the Central Bank of Nigeria, even though we know that the governor is presently at Johannesburg, South Africa. We know he has his ears close to the ground here, and this is home anyway, so you have to solve the problem from home first. So we do hope that the Central Bank of Nigeria will accelerate, the circulation of money, Naira, so that the economy will move, and then we can avoid that recession. Remember, the last experience of recession wasn't pleasant at all. We'll head to the commodities market, but that'll be in just a moment. It's commodities market time now. We have Bolanle Agbaje here, senior analyst, financial derivatives company.
Hi.
Good afternoon. Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
Second time. I guess because I saw you on Tuesday.
Yes.
All right. So we saw the inflation figure, but first of all, the issue of the cash crunch. Of course, it's obviously a major factor in the inflation number, but share with us your experience since the announcement by the central bank. Has anything changed?
Well, nothing has changed so far in terms of I haven't seen the old Naira notes. I'm only seeing that on TV. I haven't had time to go to the bank yet or visit any ATMs. But from what you played earlier, it seems like it hasn't really changed much as they've probably followed with the Supreme Court's ruling.
Or say they followed.
Yes, to release the old Naira notes. It seems like we don't know if it's intentional or not, but it seems like they are making sure that this is not still, in the market as it should. And what that means is going forward, we'll probably see the same, or probably have the same problems that we faced in the month of February. And, slowdown in business activity and just, the fact that we can't get back to business as usual. And it was still halted by this currency or cash crunch that we're facing at the moment. But I'm sure with what you've shown now, probably the CBN would make sure that, they talk to these banks and the rollout system and the implementation of these policies that they keep. I think implementation is really a big problem for us in this country. We always, roll out plans, roll out policies, and trying to, figure out the best way to implement this has always been a problem for the country, and it seems like it's playing in this situation.
Well, we hope that the incoming administration is watching and actually looking out for those pit holes or those gaps.
Yes.
That could be the first place to start off with.
Of course.
To give Nigerians a sense of hope.
Yes.
After all, the president-elect promised renewed hope. That could be one way to actually tell Nigeria, okay, things are going to be different. I'm giving you renewed hope in this area.
Yes, and I think for the CBN, it seems like, they're trying to really taper inflation. And I'm sure using this cash scarcity it seems like it's one method they're trying to,
Is it working, though? Because, okay, we see that we see that it's from 21.82 to 21.91.
Yes.
So can we say that
if you look at it this way, inflation more or less remained flat if we look at it, because they only inched up by about 0.09%, which some analysts would probably say is kind of insignificant. And what we only saw, I think core inflation actually declined for the first time since March 2022. And also month-on-month inflation, which is a better reflection of what is actually happening in the economy, also declined as well to about 1.71, which is great. But we only saw,
food inflation
increase, but it only increreased by about 0.03%.
Yeah, not so much, yes.
Not so much.
It went from 24.32 to 24.35.
Yes, exactly. So it
just
probably,
like
it probably means
0.03.
it's the inconvenience of the cash crunch that, resulted in the slight inch up we had seen with inflation. Because all in all, when you reduce the velocity of money in circulation, which also contributes to inflation, you see the opposite effect. So you see inflation, going down, as well as, when you increase interest rates and, some other methods that the monetary policy methods that, the CBN implements. So I'm sure this is one thing they're looking at. And it'll be nice to see what they do with, their meeting next week. And
I guess we can. I mean, the CBN governor in Johannesburg is telling other central bank governors, to give guidelines, obviously because of the Silicon Valley, but
so they can anticipate.
It sounds like the hike is going to be harsh or worse.
So it'll just be nice to wait and see, because on one hand you saw inflation go up, but it wasn't that significant.
The rate of hike.
So they would most likely either leave it as status quo or increase interest rates marginally. So it'll just be nice to see, and obviously coming from the elections and whatever happens with the elections as well, it would be nice to see what the CBN will do next week.
And then we now have the threat of that Silicon Valley Bank.
Yes, and Credit Suisse has joined as well.
And you see, the equities, the bank stocks have been, even in Nigeria.
Panic, yes.
Yeah, even in Nigeria.
There's panic going on right now, and it's so unprecedented. We're even confused about what exactly is going on. You can see the impact on oil prices as well.
Yes.
Nobody anticipated that, oil prices will be trading at $74 per barrel. Imagine our expectations of oil prices at this time was supposed to be within the ranges of, 80 and above. Even at 90, we expected, because we haven't seen any significant increase in supply from OPEC's point of view, and also the renewed
And remember, Russia
China.
Also, they've cut down on their output.
Exactly.
So it's supposed
but we're getting news that they've actually increased their production because they're getting traction from India and China, and which is obviously...
And they now have new partners in UAE, Saudi Arabia, surprisingly.
Exactly. So that's also, we expected that this shouldn't even bring, oil prices down to where it is now. So it's quite shocking for us and Nigerians as consumers of this, or suppliers of oil. We're obviously on the receiving end and facing.
And our benchmark is 70.
Yes.
So
we're very close
to the edge. It's so close.
Yes, but it's quite sad what's happening with Credit Suisse. Going forward, it's just be nice to watch the news and see. Hopefully it stops with Credit Suisse and it doesn't.
Yeah, I think they do have a rescue coming their way.
Well, their government is still, they haven't really said much because, it's from Switzerland, and it will be nice to see what, they do. With the US, they already mentioned that there was bailout, ready in place for, the two banks that face distress with. But also the Moody's situation as well, there's been downgrade for the US banking sector from, stable to negative, which is not so great and has increased panic and fear within the, and most investors are trying to liquidate their assets so that they don't, face. Everybody has learned their lessons from the financial crisis before, and nobody wants to face that going forward.
Yeah, but where will people put their money? Because you have to put your money somewhere.
Yes, I'm hearing the U.S. Treasury is one place as well that most investors are running to because it's safe at the moment, and obviously some other commodities that we believe are long term, and you're always going to get your money from those.
And on Tuesday we talked about gold also.
Yes,
that's also getting some attention at this time. Well, thank you so much. We do hope this banking
crisis
does not get worse than it is now.
I really do hope
we already see it in equities. We see the banking stocks, and
it will definitely mean a recession if that occurs.
We don't want recession. The experience of the last recession was not good for anyone at all. So we do not hope for that. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bolande Agbaje, Senior Analyst, Financial Derivatives Company, for your time this morning.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a breather. We'll be back to head to more markets. Just before we head to the equities or the fixed income market, we have Juliana standing by in our UK studio to give us updates on what's going on in there. Hi, Juliana. Good morning. Good to see you in the studio, Juliana. We do know that there's a bit of hope that the issue with the strikes might be getting solved or something.
Slightly, yeah. Should we talk about the budget which was a massive fiscal policy yesterday, announced by the Chancellor? Of course, this was his second most important fiscal statement. There was the autumn statement that we received after the Trustonomic market meltdown, where he did calm the nerves of markets. And now there perhaps may be a little bit of optimism. I suppose the headline that we can take away from yesterday's statement at the dispatch box in the House of Commons is that Britain is unlikely to enter into a technical recession, which is those 2 quarters of contractual growth. Now, we know that the IMF, the Office for Budget Responsibility, as well as the Bank of England, had forecast that we could be into our deepest recession this year. That is not likely to happen. Also, as well, there were some headlines about inflation, which is currently at 10.1%. The Chancellor said yesterday that he expects it to dip to about 2.9%. So that was a lot of optimism. A big thing that was mentioned yesterday as well is childcare. Now, childcare is very expensive, and we know that there are over 6 million working-aged adults in the UK who were economically inactive. Lots of this has got to do with long COVID and NHS waiting times. So many people not working at the moment. But then there is a vast majority of people who are not working because they can't afford to work, because childcare is incredibly expensive. I was having a conversation yesterday with Vladdy, explaining to him that if you want to put your child into just a standard nursery, you're talking way over £1 million Naira every single month. And the Chancellor and the Prime Minister obviously recognise that this is just not going to be good in its efforts to try and get people back into work. So they're offering billions of pounds of state-free childcare. Lots of papers this morning digging in on that and asking whether or not it could actually happen and if it is going to be safe. So there are several bits and pieces. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
I can hear you, Juliana. I can hear you. I can hear you.
Brilliant. And yes, there were discussions about corporation tax, which is going to hike up from 19 to 25%. And the big one, that energy price guarantee. So for the past few months, our energy bills haven't been rising past that £2,500 that was put in place until April. The Chancellor did confirm that it will be extended into the next quarter. So yes, no tax giveaways, but they've described it as a growth budget. So we should just have to wait and see once we dig further into that detail.
Yeah, thank you for that, Juliana. Even though that cut from 10.1% to 2% inflation is very, very optimistic, but just a little bit, just a little bit, that probability of the strikes being taken care of?
Yeah, I think we're all, this strike industrial action is really now, it's getting to the end of our tether. It's affecting everybody. As I said yesterday, I was working from home. Why? Because I had to look after the children, because tens of thousands of schools were shut because there's strikes there. So the teachers' unions are striking again today. coordinated strikes with TfL. It's really difficult. It's practically empty in central London because you can't get into here. And then, of course, there are the NHS strikes, which were completely unprecedented when they first occurred at the beginning of the year. According to some reports, perhaps as soon as in the next hour, there could be an announcement from the government saying there is some breakthrough. The government have always said they can't go further than the 3.5% pay offer. NHS bosses, union bosses, they want something more in line with inflation at 10%. The government can't afford that. Apparently, they've been locked in intense negotiations for the past 7 days, and there could be an announcement at some point today. Fingers crossed, we're all waiting. However, that's just one of very many sectors that are on strike at the moment. And I think, everyone in this country, I think I can speak on behalf of everyone and say that, yes, we want this to stop now. I'm
sure it's safe to say that for everyone, Juliana. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you at 1:30. All right, so let's head straight to the market now, the morning market with Anita Edet. Anita?
Yes, good morning, Ini.
Good morning.
Yeah, for the markets, it's across the markets, the fixed income, the equities market, and the unlisted securities market is a bearish sentiment. So,
was it because of the inflation?
Yeah, well, I think our guest will be having, our analyst will be telling us if it's the inflation, because it's across all the markets. Even the currencies market. Okay, so now with that being said, we lost the stock market lost an additional 0.42%, which you can see on the board there. That's about 36 billion naira wiped off from the market's total value, 30.228 trillion naira. That's what you see on the board. Let's take a look at the sectoral performance. Sectoral performance, the insurance sector was the only gainer for that day. We saw the shares price of Geregu and Zenith Bank, as well as some 17 other stocks taking an impact on the market. Now let's go straight to our analyst here, Afolabi Benro. Let him tell us more about the impact of the market, whether it was caused by inflation. Thank you for joining us, Afolabi.
Good morning, Anita. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, okay.
So with regards to your question, I think one thing I would point out is that the inflation numbers came out yesterday. But the market had started coming down since Monday. I think what we are basically seeing is sort of like a contagion effect, a ripple effect as to what's happening globally, where stocks have been losing value over fears and concerns about the sort of like the health of the banking sector. If you look at what happened on the NGX yesterday, the banking sector, I think, was the one that lost the most, and this was driven by names like GTCO and Zenith. So I think I wouldn't pin it solely on inflation. I think it's important to point out that the losses we had been seeing started from I think on Monday. Prior to now, we had been seeing investors taking advantage taking positions rather, in anticipation of the expected corporate earnings, which are to be announced by the end of this month. This is the period where dividends and bonuses are announced, and that's usually a trigger for investors in the market. So that's what we have been seeing.
Okay, so Afolabi, I think we'll leave it there and then we'll have our attention on other markets. Thank you for that analysis. That was Afolabi Benro, equity trader at Stanbic IBTC Stockbrokers. So that's it for the market. But I think I'll be giving you just off the slides information. The unlisted securities market, it was down by 0.14% in contrast to what we had on Tuesday. And then for the money market and the fixed income market, bonds were bearish. Treasury bills was also bearish, as well as the OMO segment. The yields there closed flat at 3%.
Yeah, so very red market we had on Wednesday. And as Afolabi said, we hope this does not become a constant, Anita. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so as Anita leaves, Ladi Williams comes in to tell us...
With another contagion.
Oh, my word.
It's all about contagion right now.
Oh, man, this is getting too much. How do we breathe with all of this?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, it's a risk that we're all having to face, at this time, talking about the banking industry globally. But, with Credit Suisse, there's some hope.
Yeah.
This morning, we saw the share price did jump.
Yeah, because of the help that's coming their way.
So help is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And hopefully it to put a full stop to, you know, the losses
and we know that the banks,
and the negative breath.
The banks are safe. Let's just make sure the banks are safe.
That's a prophecy.
Exactly. So looking at the market sentiment, 52 points, neutral. Still trying to move away from that fear point, trying to get to greed. We did get to greed earlier, but now we're having to deal with neutral in this market. Let's look at the market cap, 1.07 trillion, down 2.50%. Volume traded is also down this morning, 19.16, and we see Bitcoin dominance inching up gradually, 44.19%, almost 45% at this time. You know what happens once Bitcoin dominance hits. It means Bitcoin could go on some kind of run, and altcoins, might suffer from that. Let's look at the price of Bitcoin, 24,524, down 0.98%. After touching about 26,000 yesterday. Volume traded $42.07 billion. Look at Ethereum now, still holding that range, $1,600. Let's bring in Olumide Adesina, our financial market analyst. Hello, Olumide. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Ladi. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Olumide, this market searching for direction, but it has recovered a lot from falling below 20,000 the last time. But who do you see taking control, the bears or the bulls, at some point?
Well, it sounds very tricky. You know fully well that despite the Swiss National Bank support for Credit Suisse, we're seeing parabolic movement in the crypto market, and it's not far-fetched because. We are seeing risk coming back to the market. We're seeing stocks going up, increasingly, particularly the European session. It's not the same in the crypto market. There are reports that the US Fed is planning on creating an instant payment network where you could run transactions between banks, merchants, and consumers within seconds. And definitely that will have an effect on the crypto market, particularly areas of stablecoin. So investors are watching that news properly. And also, it's also fair to understand that the dollar rallied by almost 2% yesterday. So despite the fact that we're seeing a moderation, investors are also cautious by how the market will play out in the United States session. But having said all these things, the dynamics of the market shows that the crypto market is more evolving. We have seen the case where Binance are converting a large chunk of their holdings to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other altcoins, moving away from fiat-related assets. So it tells you that major entities also are trying to create liquidity in the fragile ecosystem. But, like you said, Bitcoin had got almost to a point of $26,000 before moderating back below 24, and right back is back up between $24,000. So the battle is still a tug of war. But in the past couple of months, you could say the bulls have an upper hand, or with the way the macroeconomic conditions are going, the bears might have the final say.
Yeah, because the weekend is slowly coming upon us at this time. What are you expecting? Some kind of rally or dump?
Well, I think the status quo will remain, except we see high activity in economic data, which probably is unlikely. So I think it would be fair to say that Bitcoin might hold 24,000 support till weekend. However, it all depends on how risk sentiments take place in the United States trading session.
All right, we're watching out for all of that. Thank you so much, Olumide Adesina, financial market analyst.
Thank you for having me. All
right, let's look at the top pulse by market cap. There we see it's just Binance token there, BNB, holding up 0.70%, $313, still staying above that $300 level. We see Cardano having a pullback there, 5.43%. Matic, 6.94% down. And we see XRP still holding strong to that 30-cent range. Let's look at the top gainers counter. GMX topping that counter up 7.55%, $80.89. Did lose some momentum for a while now, got to about $70, but starting to crawl back some of those gains. And we see Magic Token 3.10%, and we see BNB there getting on that top 5 gainers counter up 0.88%, and it's double-digit losses we're seeing for the top 5 losers there. CFX, the China token there, 16.26% down. STX, File token, and Little DAO down 16.21%. So it's we're seeing double-digit losses and some gains in the market. So the market is just looking for direction. At this point, but who's going to get the upper hand?
After the election on Saturday, the market will get direction.
After the election. All right, counting on that.
All right, Ladi, thank you. See you at 1:30 for Business Incorporated. That's where we draw the curtains on Business Morning 4 this morning. Thank you so much for being a part of it. The elections are fast approaching, so let's get ready to go out there and choose our leaders. Remember, if you don't choose your leaders, then you don't have any right to complain. But I'll see you tomorrow, God willing, and as we prepare to vote, I'm looking to